Hello, everybody. No More Obvious coming with the third video, second chapter, and I know it's been like 4 days since I've uploaded one, but this weekend, I got the feeling that everything just went whoosh emotionally. So I was feeling really down and just not up to doing anything, and it was probably the most unproductive weekend I've had in so long, and it sucked. And I'm trying to get better. That's why I'm making a vlog now, while I should be working on a presentation I have due tomorrow. Um, and Mondays and Tuesdays I won't be uploading videos. I've got biology at night, which sucks. Never ever do that if you have an option. If you have the option to, do not take any class past 6 p.m. Philosophy was the only one that was acceptable. Even that was pushing it. What I wanted to talk about today was things we don't talk about. I'm not going to bring up issues, the abortion, gay marriage, all that. Don't argue them because we're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that everything has to be hyper politically correct. And it, to an extent, I guess it's understandable, because people do say stupid things just to piss other people off. I've done it. You've done it. Everybody has. It's not a unique thing. So, but what about the things that piss people off, but we just don't say they piss people off? I don't know if that made sense. So let's say you are for gay marriage, and we're not going to argue that, but somebody else will be offended by your view. And no matter how much data you have, no matter how much you say that you don't feel that way, or you feel that way and it's an emotional connection, it doesn't matter. The other person is offended just because you look at something differently than they do. That there are literally protests and people who go out with giant signs saying gay marriage is the devil just to prove their point. And the same goes for gay pride parades as well. I mean, I personally believe live and let live. To an extent, you don't want, like, there's some really sick people in the world. You don't want them doing what they want. But for the most part, things that seem obviously older in time, I guess you could say. I don't want to put my view out there. Not because I'm afraid of it or of what people think of it. I just don't want it to become the subject of the video. And then you go on to abortion, and then this is even more heated. This is so touchy. I've had professors who were really, really edgy about it. And these were professors who would even go on to say, well, what if I'm an atheist? And that offends people massively. And they would try to scoot past abortion as quickly as possible. And I don't blame them there. But it's things we don't talk about. It's things that we cannot sit down and have an intelligent conversation with comparing data. Like I said in my first video, we need arguments based on rationality and data, not based on what your preacher told you, not based on what your boss told you, not based on even what a professor told you, unless he's shown you the statistic. Unless you can on a fundamental level prove your point with data that you've collected yourself, or you can give promising examples, then that should be the only argument you have. There are people who will argue for the existence or non-existence of God based on personal experience that is very valid, and that can be considered data through empirical sciences. That's a weird term, empirical sciences, but basically through what they've seen. And then there are others who are simply going to use other people's examples. And what this is called in social psychology is a combination of a self-serving and confirmation bias. And bias is a really important word in there because your bias is basically, I'm trying to figure out a good lay term, and even something beyond that's a little bit difficult. But a bias is basically your personal view. It's perfect. So if you're politically biased, I mean, you're politically biased if you are Democrat, or if you are Republican, or pretty much anything in this country, that to a certain extent, it is better to have a political analysis from somewhere else, which is why I was talking about the BBC being a better news source than a lot of the Americans, because just the way media is influenced by biases. So back to self-serving and confirmation bias, and I'm really on topic this video. I'm going to trail off later, I promise. Like right there. We have people who argue with self-serving and confirmation biases. Your confirmation bias is going to be something that you seek out that confirms what you think to a T, and the internet is a cesspool for this. I know I'm part of, I guess, a subculture of groups of people who hold the same views I do, because it is nice to say, well, yeah, you're right. Or it is nice to find an ideology that works for you. And sometimes that's what you need to do to begin developing your own opinion. And I think I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking on that. So what we can gather, ultimately, is that people will use information and find groups that serve themselves, and that's self-serving. That no matter how much you argue, no matter how much you throw data at them, it has been studied that they will dig in deeper. So if you're sitting there talking, if an atheist is arguing, not discussing, arguing or fighting, you could say, with a religious person, and neither of them are being sympathetic to the other person's side, both of them will dig deep into their ideals. And it's kind of understandable that, when you're challenged, you want to be right. I don't like this, because I like to have a little bit of hope in humanity, but it's the reason for rationality. So we can rationalize with ourselves that we are right and the other person's wrong. It's a survival instinct. Self-serving. So, yeah, that's the end of that topic. I want to talk a couple minutes about something. Can't remember what it was. I guess I'll just update you on the topic, or on the project. I started to, and I lost motivation. I've relapsed into my gaming addiction, so I'm currently fighting that, and I'm kind of doing this because I need a spur of productivity, and this makes me feel like I'm actually doing something mildly productive. So it's like therapy. Talking to yourself. I know myself so well, and I want you to know me too. This is directly for you, the viewer, not the viewers. I am addressing you personally. Whatever your name is, wherever you are, I'm addressing you personally. And I love your face. Okay, I stole that from Philip DeFranco. He's a really good guy. I'll link him in another video. So that's about all I wanted to say on this topic. To sum everything up from the video, pay attention to data. Open your mind to other people's arguments. When arguing with other people, remember that you need to discuss it. Don't argue, discuss. Because if you argue, you're going to make your situation worse. They will take a stronger stance. And keep fighting. Discuss this with people, share it around. Maybe it'll incite some discussions on things that need to be talked about. Peace out. That was really retarded, I'm sorry.